at Schwab conference, the Impact Conference in San Francisco. And as I've been saying for the past couple of days, one of the reasons why I love coming to these conferences is the access to the talent. And at the Schwab conference, it's just a cornucopia. And with me today, I have Abby Salameh, who is the Chief Growth Officer for RFG. Now, if you're a financial advisor that has a social media account, you know who Abby is. You have such a great presence on social media, and I love following you myself.
Well, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
So this is completely unscripted, because it's Abby. We don't need to script anything. And off camera, we were just chatting. What should we chat about? And we were thinking about women in wealth. What a great topic.
Totally.
So let me just set it up and then take it away.
Sounds good.
So we've actually covered this sort of DEI concept before. And one of the many things I love about the RIA space, if you want to be in a broker-dealer like a wirehouse, you have maybe 5 good choices, or 5 choices at least.
Right.
If you want to go the independent broker-dealer route, maybe a dozen solid choices. But if you want to go the RIA route, number one, you could build your own, and we talk about how you could build your own all the time, or you could pick from hundreds of really good choices. So what that means for DEI is if you don't like the culture of where you are, you can build your own or find your own. Go.
I would totally agree. And what's so fascinating about it, and what I think so many advisors don't realize, is that you're not stuck in a place that you're in. And I've spoken to specifically women who are with wirehouse firms that are super successful. And when you ask them, what's the culture like? Their eyes roll behind their heads. And then when you ask them and press them further, why do you stay? It's almost like, I don't want to say they've drank the Kool-Aid, because that's not it. They really haven't. It's almost too daunting of a task for them to think about leaving to go independent. And yet, if you dig in deeper and unpack what they're really feeling, many of them have told me, like, I don't even want to go into the complex or the office. When I do go in, I don't even talk to anybody because it's such a culture that isn't really for me. So, I question, why do it then? You should have the freedom to select where you want to work and who you want to work with, and none of us are victims in life, right?
I'm laughing real quick for a second, because this was not too long ago. I came home, was having dinner with my wife. I was like, man, I am so fortunate that I really love everyone I work with.
Right.
And she was like, Chuck, you hired everyone that you work with. I was like, oh.
You were like, maybe that's why I like them so much.
But you pick your own tribe, right?
Yes, exactly. We all have that freedom to pick our own tribe.
Yeah.
But specifically with women, it's interesting because when you take it down a level to the actual female investors, and that's where my head goes when I think about women in wealth, not just the advisors and the female advisors, but let's look at the women that are inheriting trillions of dollars over the next 5 years. It'll peak in 10 years. And how are we preparing advisors, men or women, to engage with women at that level? Because if you're not thinking about it now, and you start thinking about it when you start losing those assets because the wealth transfer happens, guess what? It's going to be too late.
Absolutely. So we actually talk about this quite a bit.
Yeah.
And this is sort of tangentially related. So there's going to be the great wealth transfer, 60, 70, 80 trillion dollars, depending which report you're listening to. So what are firms doing to hold on to that wealth? And I think part of it is engaging with what I like to call the KOCs. You know what a KOC is?
KOC.
In this context?
No.
Kid of clients.
Oh, kid of clients.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time at our shop. What are we doing to engage with our KOCs? But also the women, right?
Yeah.
So I've been an advisor for 30 years.
Right,
okay?
God bless you.
Yes, indeed. And I started off, hardcore, cold calling cowboy,
Phone
New York
books?
City, the whole deal, little D&B cards,
Right.
Dun & Bradstreet cards. For those of you that know, Josh Brown knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I
We've
know
talked about it
too.
before. Were you a cold caller?
Yes, back in the day, I certainly was.
I did not know that.
Yes.
Oh,
100%.
No wonder I like you so much.
I know.
Cold
We've
callers,
got grit.
Absolutely.
Right.
So here's my point of bringing this up. So back then, we never solicited women. It's just the way it was.
Right.
It's just the way it was. But you know what? If you're not engaging with both spouses, that's as bad as not engaging with the KOCs.
Yeah.
Right? Because if, husband passes, I don't know the statistic, but I bet it's pretty
over
high.
80%.
The surviving spouse, the surviving wife in this
Leaves the
case.
advisor.
So it's just the same.
I mean, that was a Merrill Lynch study, but I would think it hasn't moved very far since they did that study last
I
year.
wouldn't think so either. So
Yeah.
it's the same as the kids leaving the advisors, and it's the reason's the same. If the advisor doesn't talk with the kid will leave.
Yep.
If the advisor doesn't talk with the wife will leave, and it just makes a ton of sense.
So what are you guys doing to prepare your
Yeah. So for the KOCs, we're
Yeah.
engaging with estate planning, in fact.
Great.
Right. We had Vanilla on just yesterday on this.
Awesome.
And so what we're doing is making sure that the first time our KOC hears from us
Yeah.
is not to say, sorry to hear your parents passed away.
Exactly.
That cannot be the first call.
No.
And hey, you don't know who I am, but you should keep your money with me.
Right.
Meanwhile, they're moving it on over to Robinhood, right? You heard that deal today.
Oh
and
my
all this.
God, that was awesome.
So
Good for Rob.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we don't want that to happen. So we're engaging with them first with estate planning.
Yep.
And then, and this is something we're actually working on with eMoney.
Yeah.
They're creating this kind of an enhanced do-it-yourself,
Uh-huh.
where you could just send a link to the KOC,
Yeah.
and they can do a lot of the busy work. Because here's the balance: we're kind of transitioning to a different topic, but why not?
Who cares?
If you want to talk to the KOC, there's only so much time, right, an advisor
Yeah.
could spend with a
And
$3,000 Roth IRA.
And you're supposed to be spending your time with your most high-valued clients and
Right.
profitability, et cetera.
But for example, folks like Vanilla, Trust and Wills, eMoney, they're making it easy for us advisors to engage with that KOC, provide value to that KOC,
Yeah.
but then also make sure that the first time the KOC hears Sovereign or RFG is not
When
at the
they're-
wake.
Exactly. So what's interesting is that we've also taken another approach where we have a chief behavioral officer, Brendan
Yes.
Fraser.
Yeah, love his work.
Right, he's great. And we're working with our advisors, with their clients, one-on-one with the families, on the human side of money, the emotional aspects of the wealth transfer.
Yeah.
Because with every wealth transfer and with every multi-generational wealth that comes into play, there's so many emotions that come into the
Sure.
story. For example, if you have a wealthy client who, was building his or her own business from the ground up, grew up really poor, and made a success of him or herself, and then raised the family like upper middle class where they had everything, they don't necessarily want to just hand the kids the money, because they want them to actually have that same grit, that same work ethic, that same
Yeah.
power to be able to want to go create something. So the dynamics that come into play with the wealth transfer are equally as important as the technical aspect of just transferring the wealth.
Amen to that. And again, I was chuckling before, you're hitting all these buttons that are really resonating with me. So I didn't grow up poor, but as I like to say, I could see it from where we were.
Yeah.
And I grew in,
You didn't know it. You didn't know you were poor.
we did not.
Right.
Or at least I did not. But looking back on it, and I brought my kids to the house we grew up in, which is about the same square footage right now as our finished basement.
Right.
I was like, we were not poor, but we were certainly not wealthy.
Right.
But we were, happy, and my parents gave me the tools to do what I've done now, which is build Sovereign, which is not the biggest firm in the world, but you know what? We're paying the bills, and we're living a pretty good lifestyle.
Yeah.
But your point is, really, it resonates with me, because we're doing some estate planning right now, and it's not like we're leaving billions of dollars to the kids, but I don't want them to have the ability to just start writing big checks, and not so much for any other reason other than the satisfaction of building your own wealth.
Right.
And having that discussion before it happens, I think, is brilliant for you guys to be doing that.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's been really well received.
Yeah.
And I think it's really helping the families talk about some of these issues that maybe they would not have talked about unless they were in family therapy, which how many families are really in family therapy? So we could
Yeah.
disguise it in some ways. So, I think that's a great way to connect with your KOCs.
KOCs.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
In a more holistic manner.
Love
And
that.
then with regard to women, back to what we were originally talking about, there are tools available to help advisors with understanding how to engage with women, because they are very different and have different things that are important to them just inherently. Obviously, that's a stereotype. But, when they think about money, for example, for the most part, they think about family.
Yeah.
They're not thinking about returns. They're not thinking about beating the markets. They're not thinking about those things that are typically gender specific to men.
Yeah.
They're much more concerned about, what does the money enable me to do? What experiences can I have? How do I want to be spoken to, and what's important to me?
Yeah.
And it is definitely a different relationship.
Yeah, I was on a panel not too long ago. We were talking about, providing wealth advice to women in particular. And it was amazing to me that women are still being mansplained to in the advisor's office. It's like, what knucklehead is doing that?
I mean, do you think that's an attractive thing?
Yeah.
For a woman to be mansplained?
Of course not, but I thought we were kind of beyond that.
Yeah.
And not even it's just a bad thing to do,
Right.
period, but it's also pretty bad business. You don't even see the fact that it's bad business and it's still happening. But I was
know.
shocked to hear that.
Well, I think as we start to see the next generation of advisor come up in power or come up in stature, I think their relationship with the different genders might be a little bit different.
Yeah, I think that's
than
true.
the typical 56-year-old white male.
I'm a 56-year-old white male. But I'm not a typical one, I'll tell you that.
As I was saying it, I was like,
How old is Chuck? He look like he could be 56.
I was like, he could be early 50s, maybe not 56.
Oh, that was generous. Thank you.
Yes.
With enough makeup, perhaps. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we all need a little makeup. So I don't know. I think there's a huge opportunity for all of us in this
Absolutely.
industry to really look at DEI, but I'm really more focused on kids of clients,
Yes.
women, and really serve them because they deserve to be served, and they deserve to be served in the way that's impactful for them.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good place to put a pin in it for today.
Great
Abby Salameh,
seeing you.
RFG, I love it. Always love having you as a guest, and we'll see you again real
Super
soon.
fun.
I'm sure we'll be at another conference early next year.
I am
and we'll do it all
so
over
sure
again.
of that.
Absolutely.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
You bet. And so on behalf of goRIA, fueled by Investment News, I'm Chuck Vela, and we'll be back in another hour or so with some more content. Stay tuned. Thanks. And thanks again, Abby.